Oh, my name is Dan Packer, and today, March 27th, 2003, we're here at the Plymouth Historical Museum in Plymouth, Michigan. As part of our Veterans History Project, we're here to interview Helen Clinansmith, who was a war worker during World War II. What's that?
Wait a minute. I was in Chicago. My brother brought me into Detroit. I was only 18.
Okay.
Okay, I was a waitress on the north side of Chicago. It was during the wartime. The war had just been declared, and my brother didn't want me to stay there alone in the big city, so he brought me to Highland Park. And
Highland Park, Michigan?
yeah,
Okay.
that's where he lived.
Ah, it's your brother.
Yeah, my brother, Frank, he was
Frank?
the eldest.
Okay.
He's still living. He's 80-some years old now.
Good.
He's the only one. I don't know how to put him as the 10th one. He being the eldest, I'm the second eldest right now. My sister Mary passed away, but her husband was in the Navy at that time. Frank was classified as 4F, and I don't know what people know about 4F.
4F. Means you're not
qualified medically
service, right?
or physically for with the service. Okay, I think I can do it.
Okay, great. Well, let me ask you this. Well, back when the war started, you first heard about Pearl Harbor, for instance.
Oh, yeah.
When did you hear of that, and how did you react?
Okay, I was a waitress in a small Greek cafe on the north side of Chicago. And my shift was early morning from 7 till 3. And we heard that Pearl Harbor was bombed. And of course, myself plus several customers were quite stunned. But we were young and we didn't know too much as to what it really would entail.
Right.
But they told us the Japanese, you can't say Japs.
You said Japs back then, didn't you?
Yeah, oh yeah.
That was the terminology you used.
It was the terminology used, and it wasn't slang, it wasn't bad.
Yeah.
And so we just went on with our daily routine, and every once in a while FDR would come. When he came on and made the comment that we are at war, that Pearl Harbor was attacked by the Japanese bombers, and there were a lot of casualties and so on. We all felt badly, but we didn't react in the way people are reacting to the war today.
How's that?
Well, we thought that everybody should go right along with the president. There were no demonstrations or anything like there is pro and con the president right now. And at that time, we all got behind him and thought, what are we going to do and how are we going to do it? So we did formulate a program where we would meet. How did that go? Let's see. It was on a certain night of the week, and we just talked about it. It was just like a conversation thing. We would get together and talk about it, and then we dropped the subject. It was important, but to us, it wasn't that important. You know, I mean, there's nothing we could do. We know it was a war, and we're here, and let's do what we can to help them.
All right. So when you heard the medium of communication at that time to get the word out, like Pearl Harbor, I think it was over the radio?
Yes.
You heard it over the radio?
Oh, yeah, there was no TV.
Then when you talk about President Roosevelt, now you're talking about Franklin Delano Roosevelt, right?
Yes.
And that was over the radio also.
Yes, oh yes.
So he would communicate with American people over the radio.
Yes, he would have his fireside chats.
Okay. What was that?
It was called a fireside chat. He would sit near the fireside, I imagine, in the White House, and sit in his big chair and talk to the people every so often, explain the circumstances and what's going on, and what we can do to help and so on. That's when they decided about the rationing.
Okay.
Rationing came a little while later, but it involved all the families and all the communities, all the people.
Everybody was affected.
And everybody was affected, and that's when the War Ration Book was instigated, when it was installed into the public life. It was just a normal fixture.
Yeah, in fact, you've got a war ration book here.
Yeah.
Can you hold that up and I'll take a picture of that. This is your book, is it, Helen?
Yes.
Okay. And you remember when you received that book?
Well, I don't quite remember the date that I received it, but as soon as they were issued, I'm sure we got a book for everything. Not only for meat and coffee and shoes and sugar, and there was quite a few different things that took stamps.
Oh,
And
okay.
the stamps were in the book,
Right.
and the stamps were, we'd have to take out one every time that we purchased something.
Ah, okay.
There was one taken out of every one of these issues.
Categories, yeah. Categories of stamps? Okay. Okay. So each one of these are marked a little bit differently. One you got a little tank on. I'll put a picture here. And then you have, it's like aircraft carriers for your rations for certain items. So these would be for certain items. That,
Well, certain items, but there were different books too for certain
okay.
items. Maybe this book was just for one item. I don't
okay.
know.
Okay.
But you were given, like we went to the gas station and we had to tear the stamp for a gallon of gas or 5 gallons of gas or whatever it was. You were lucky if you could fill up your tank. There was no such thing as filling up your tank unless you had plenty of gas coupons. And then if you didn't have enough, a lot of times you'd try to borrow it from somebody, but you're not supposed to give your own to anybody else. It was kind of...
On the honor system, really.
yeah.
Right?
It was. And the same thing with coffee. I remember when I moved into Plymouth here in 1943, I got married in Plymouth and moved here. I used to go up to Kroger's, and Kroger's was right up here on Main Street. And we would save fat. Whenever we rendered fat from meat or anything else at home, we would strain it, put it in a coffee can or something, and take it down to Kroger's, and they would weigh it and give us like a nickel a pound for the fat.
What would the fat be used for, do you know?
Ammunition.
Ammunition, okay.
The fat was used for ammunition, yeah. And there was other recycling places for tin cans. We had to cut off the top and the bottom of the tin cans and crush it with our foot, make it flats, and then we'd sell that to a salvage dealer or it would be collected. I don't know if we received any money for that like we did the fat, but I remember saving cans that way.
They were what they call drives, like for metal drives, rubber drives, is that correct?
I remember that, yeah, something like that, but I remember just cutting off the top and bottom lid. I think they want us to do that kind of a thing today, too, when we put in for recycling, you know.
Right.
Clean the can, crush it down, and put it into recycle. The shoes were the same way. We had a coupon for shoes, and maybe we were allowed one pair every 6 months or one pair a year. I don't recall that. The meat, the same thing. We would be allowed a pound of meat for every coupon we had. And of course, people didn't have freezers, and they didn't store anything the way they do today with big freezers. The farmers were able to butcher and keep their own cattle naturally, but the people were very dedicated to the war effort, and I think the majority of them, sure, there was a black market. The black market took a lot of people away from being truthful and honest. They would black market cigarettes especially. Cigarettes were something that was very a lot of people did smoke, and I never had smoked myself, so I wasn't involved in that kind of a coupon. But
Well, most people back in the 40s did smoke, is that right? I mean, the majority of people would smoke?
they would, yes, they did. And of course, at that time, you didn't see any teenagers smoking.
No?
And even girls, young girls or so, they wouldn't. It wasn't the right thing to do for the morality. If they did, they were sneaking it behind the bushes or something, like at high school or so, you know. It wouldn't.
Right.
It's not allowed. It wasn't allowed. And so that was with the cigarettes. They would go down south, too, down to Tennessee and Kentucky, wherever the tobacco country was, and they would buy cartons of cigarettes and bring them up here and sell them on the black market.
Okay.
It was called the black market. Isn't that funny how that comes to me now? And black market. And then, of course, like I say, the gas, the meat, the shoes,
So there's a lot of things.
cigarettes. So there was a lot of things that were
Ration.
rationed.
Right. Now, Helen, you say that you were in Chicago as a waitress, and then your brother said when the war started, come on home.
Yeah.
Which was Highland Park at the time? Or where did he live at the time?
Well, at that time, he lived in Highland Park,
Okay.
over on Beresford on the east side. I don't know where Beresford is, but it's down there in Detroit, Highland Park, yeah.
Right.
And my brother came to Chicago and he saw me alone working in the city as a waitress, and he says, with the war on and everything, this is no place for a girl to be alone, especially at your age.
How old were you?
So 18.
18.
18. There were most of the boys, and all the dates that we had or whatever, they were servicemen, because Fort Sheridan was on the north side of Chicago and Great Lakes was down, the Navy base was downtown. And we would go out and to a dance hall or something, but we weren't allowed. We were under the age of 18. We weren't allowed in a tavern, so we had to find our own amusement, which was probably dancing with each other. You know, at that time we didn't have this stupid stuff they have today, where two girls can't dance together. But the men were gone. There were no men available. So if you wanted to go to the theater or if you wanted to go elsewhere, you would go with a girlfriend, of course. We'd hop on the streetcar and go down Broadway or Sheridan Road down to the Chicago Theater for amusement, and all the different theaters where we saw personalities like the Ink Spots and Sammy Kaye and Russ Morgan. Now those are guys from our era. And we had good entertainment by that because all the young men were gone. We didn't have a date. We just had each other, just a bunch of girls.
So the dating age male was pretty rare.
It was.
Scarce.
It wasn't. We didn't have any male friends at all. They were all in the service. So I remember dancing many times on the carpet at home. We learned the jitterbug there. The jitterbug came in at that time. And we used to dance on our carpet in our apartment on the north side of Chicago there. And the bottoms of our nylons would completely wear off because we were dancing rough and, we had a good time, but Chicago was a nice place to experience. I didn't see a colored person until I went to Chicago because I was born in the North Country in the Upper Peninsula of Michigan in a small town near Ironwood and Bessemer. And coming here and seeing a porter on the train going from Ironwood to Chicago was the first time when I was 18. So we didn't have people. North Country is very, very cold, and there weren't any jobs there. So naturally, all the people were in the South. The black people or the colored people, they were in the South. So I was taken down to Chicago by a girlfriend of mine whom I met in Ironwood. And when we got there, we hopped on a streetcar, and she said, "You've never even seen a streetcar?" And I said, "No." She said, "Let's get on one." So we rode from the north side of Chicago way down to the south side of Chicago. And that was my first experience on a streetcar.
Big city, huh?
Yeah.
Big city.
Big city, and a lot of children playing out. It was in the heat of the summer, where all the kids were still out. It was midnight, but they were still out there playing in the streets. And what an experience. I can visualize it every time I stop to think of it. But then when my brother came to Chicago and he saw what I was into for about a year, he said, "You're coming with me to Detroit, and I'm going to get you a job at the Ford Motor Company in Helen Park." So I stayed with him for about a week, and I went down for an interview, and they were starting a class for welders. And this wonderful, wonderful person was our teacher. He taught us. Within 6 weeks, we were able to go on the line and weld the tanks. Now, the weld that we put in the tanks was a 3-seam weld, and that means that every time you made one seam with the welding iron, the slag had to be chipped off with a hammer before you put the second seam in there. So there was like 3 seams on each, every 2 portions of the, it's hard to explain.
I understand. You're building a tank basically, aren't you?
Yeah, it was the tanks, and each one of us had our certain section of the tank. I don't know if the line moved down slowly, like they ordinarily do on a production line, or whether these were stationary. But I remember putting the seam in there, and we were so proud. We had to be careful of flashbacks in our eyes or on our skin and so on, and that's the reason for the protective helmet and the
Right.
shield and the heavy glasses. And our uniforms that we had was just a two-piece cotton outfit we purchased from them. And it had bands across the wrists and across the ankles to make sure no chips would fall on our body.
Right.
And that was the
Had
greatest
expandable
thing.
wrists and
Yeah,
ankles.
it was like a band. It went right across
Yeah.
the wrists, so the sparks couldn't fly up because they would really directly hit you in the.
Oh, Helen, when you talk about we, you talk about we are who? Now, who are the we in the class of the welding class?
All the girls. There were probably around 25 girls in the welding class.
25.
So we all worked on the line together. So all of us girls mingled together.
Okay.
And
Now, we're talking about
did
the
our-
Ford plant in Highland Park, Michigan.
Yes.
Which is transformed from building automobiles. It was an automobile
Yes.
plant, right?
Yeah, they cleaned the the cars out, and they set it up completely for nothing but tanks. So it was a Ford tank plant in 1942, 1943 when I worked there for those 2 years.
Okay.
And then what I tried to do when I left there, I went down to the City Hall in Detroit, that was the old City Hall, and when I wanted to sign up for going into service, I wanted to become a WWII, that is a woman of the Navy.
Right.
Okay, I went there, but I was too young. I was like, 4 months or so too young. I had to be 20. A woman had to be 20 to join the service.
Okay.
And I was too young, so at that time I was going with a young fellow. And we filled out all the papers for my enlisting in the service. And they made the papers out, and they says, okay, your papers are all set, ready to go. When you're 20, you come down here and you're ready to ship out to Hunter's College in New York City. And you will be a communications clerk.
Oh, okay.
So in the meantime, my boyfriend didn't want me to go. He said that the women of the service had a bad name and this and that, and he proposed, so I got married.
I got married instead, huh?
And I regret it in a way. Part of it, half of me says, I wonder what I could have done or what I would have been and so on. It comes back to memory, and I'm very, very sorry in a way that I didn't join the WWII. I think, and I would have been the first one in my family of 10 to be indoctrinated into the service. So I really miss that. It's one of my biggest regrets that I didn't join the service.
Now, you had brothers that were in the service, is that right?
Yes, I have 5 brothers that were directly in the service. And I had all my sisters, of which I had 3 other sisters. Their husbands were in the service too. So all of us were very dedicated personnel. At that time, it was a thing to do for the graduates.
Right.
When the graduates graduated from school, the best thing to do at that time was to enlist in the service, because that was at the time of war, and it was a job for them to go to. Because up there in the UP, the jobs are few and far between. So my mother says, rather than you just sit around the house, let's get the sack together. So as they graduated every year, she had 5 boys in 8 years. So every year as they graduated, they would enlist in the service.
I'm going to get a picture of the family photo we have here. Now, the 5 brothers that were in service are in this picture?
Yes. And my sisters, their husbands that are in the picture, their husbands were all in the service. So that whole group has been service dedicated.
That's great. So, now what services were the brothers in? Do you recall?
Yes. Okay, my eldest brother, Michael, he was in the Navy. He enlisted. Of course, enlistments at that time, first I must tell you, enlistments were for 4-year hitch.
Okay.
All the time for 4-year hitch for an enlistment. If you were drafted, it was only 2 years.
Right.
Okay, Mike went to San Diego, and he was on the ship for his whole duration, And then he re-enlisted the second time, which gave him 7.5 to 8 years of service. My brother Joe was in Wiesbaden, Germany. He was a sheet metal worker, and he repaired airplanes.
Oh, in the Air Force? At the Air Corps at that time.
Air Force. And then John, my third brother, was in Korea in the Army, and he was a baker.
Oh.
He would get up at 4 and work until about 8, and then his shift was over. And he was very well taken care of. He had a little houseboy to take care of his clothes, and everything was done by personnel, other people, you know, so that was wonderful. And then George, my other brother, he was in the Army. He was a paratrooper in the 101st Infantry Division, the same one that's fighting out in Kuwait today. And that's the fourth one. And the fifth one, Jim, was an MP in the Air Force in California.
Oh, okay.
So 3 boys are VFW members, as I am myself, because of my son being in the service just 20 or 30 years ago.
Yeah.
But those 3 boys are VFW, and the other 2 boys were in the States, and they're with the American Legion, and very dedicated, very proud to be part of
I imagine.
their organization.
Now, Helen, you say your son was in the war also, huh?
Yes, my son Tom was drafted in 1966 here in Plymouth.
Oh, okay.
And his father had just passed away September of 66. So I had, because of a hardship case of me being in town and having a business and everything to dissolve, he was deferred for 6 months.
Okay.
So he went into the service in about January of the following year, 1967. He was in Texas for 3.5 years or so, and because even though he was drafted, when he got in there, he enlisted, so he had a 4-year hitch coming up. And he decided he wanted to enlist rather than be drafted because he got a better deal. I don't know how these deals go in the service, but he got the training that he wanted. But he went to Vietnam. He was a sergeant in the ammo depot at, I think it was Da Nang. It was in Vietnam. He said for 24 hours a day, nothing but boom, boom, boom overhead. And he said, if we weren't injected with a drug to make us relax and sleep, we would never have been able to get an hour's sleep, received an hour's sleep. So he went into the war as a brownhead, dark hair, 20 years old. And when he came back, I didn't hardly know him. His hair was as white as could be. Within 6 months, he turned from brown hair to silver hair, of which he still has today. And so he spent his 4 years there. He was discharged from Vietnam, and he belongs to the Vietnam veterans. And I, of course, am part of the VFW Mothers VFW, and I belong to the association, or what do you call it?
So your whole family have had quite a lineage as far as service, military service in the country. Now yourself, you say that in 42 and 43, when you were working at the Ford plant making tanks, you remember what kind of tanks they were by any chance? You know,
I don't even have a picture. At that time, people didn't take pictures like they did today. And I'm very sorry of that, but I remember the machine. It's funny how you recall a name for a machine, but the machine alongside of me, that was my electric welder, was a Hobart machine. I remember that name. Isn't that funny? Hobart machine. Now, I don't remember the tanks, but I do remember the use of other things.
This is a picture of you taken during the war period.
Yes.
Do you remember when this was taken, Helen?
This was taken in Chicago just before I went to Michigan.
Oh, okay.
Just before I went to Michigan. I don't think there's probably 3 months difference in that picture and me when I went to Chicago. You can see the style they had at that time was the hat with the big feather, and I had the coat that was very popular, so you can see the era of which had circumvented at that time.
Okay. Alrighty, Helen. Now, so
And
after,
also, one more thing
Sure.
I should say. All my sisters in the picture, Betty and Rosie, and my sister Mary, all their husbands were in the service too. My sister Mary's husband was in the Navy in 1943-44, and Betty's husband, Eno Matiska, he was in the Army, and Rosie's husband, Dennis Maslinick, was in the Army too down in Alabama. And my eldest brother, who worked at the Ford plant with me, was also service dedicated, but being 4F, he wasn't able to become into the full military regime. He had to work in the defense plant.
let me ask you this. Now, the plant you worked at the tank plant for
Yeah.
Ford. Now, how many employees were there approximately when you were there? Do you remember?
I remember it. I imagine there were just hundreds and hundreds, because
Yeah.
maybe they did keep part of their crew working on cars, also in a different portion of the tank, of the factory. But I remember the big door. In fact, there's an advertisement today on TV that shows the big door where the Model A's are coming out of the big doorway at the Ford plant. They're coming out, and I said, I remember going in that door when I was a worker. I just told my children that the other day. That's the door I used to go in when I used to go to work.
And so the proportion of female workers to male workers was about half?
Well, of course, there were so many men disappearing, and the only ones left in there with men were the men with families, because the government did not take the men with families until they really had to. That is, the married men with children and so on. So I think the only persons working there were not the young men, because they were in the service. It was the older people with families. I remember one of the things we did, like for fun, was go across the street after the shift was over, and that was like 11 o'clock. And we'd have, it was like a tavern, we call it a tavern. And we'd have our cheeseburgers and have something to drink. And the guys would probably have a glass of beer, the older ones that was able to be there, or 4Fs or whatever. And then I would walk to the corner of Woodward there in Highland Park where the factory is, and I would take the streetcar down to Tyler Avenue, which is just near Davison and 3rd. I had a room there, and I rented a room. That's where I lived when I worked at the Ford plant.
That's a really unique experience. Now, after you got married, did you stay at the plant, or did you do this, something else?
No, I came to Plymouth then.
Oh, I came to Plymouth.
My
Okay.
husband was a native of just west of town here on Curtis and North Territorial Road. The Clinansmith had a big farm out there, and he was a widower at that time with a 13-year-old child. And I married him, and I had 4 children by him, 4 in about 5.5 years. And all of my children were born at the Plymouth Hospital.
Oh, okay, across the street here.
Across the street here from us is Plymouth Hospital. It was a very, very dedicated hospital, of which Dr. Westover and Clyde performed the surgeries or whatever, and Dr. Hammond also. They were the men that practiced there for appendectomies or childbirth or whatever the case may be. It was run by 2 sisters who were perfect. They were so antiseptically clean that you couldn't even touch the bed. And that was Elma and Lena Wiest. And I'll tell you, those girls had a wonderful, wonderful hospital. And finally, Dr. Hammond thought they should get a hospital that was bigger for more people, because Plymouth at that time was building up somewhat. So they formed a committee and instigated a plan to build a bigger hospital, and that's when St. Mary's was being started.
Oh, okay.
So he was the head of that, Dr. Hammond and his crew. They would go house to house and try to collect some money to start the procedure to put a hospital in here.
So pretty much after you got married, you were a homemaker. You were having babies and...
Yeah, and that's all. But of course, I joined in all the functions, being with the schools and the church and everything like that. I was very active, even so it was all volunteerism.
Oh, yeah.
Cub Scouts and Boy Scouts, etc.
And you had 4 sons, you said?
I had 2 daughters.
2 daughters?
And 2
2
sons.
I'm sorry.
2 sons came first, Mike and Tom.
Okay.
Mike was in college, so he wasn't drafted. And Tom is the one that was to Vietnam.
Okay.
And then my 2 daughters here, one is right now, she's a flight attendant for Spirit Airlines, and Nancy, my youngest, is with the Township of Plymouth, and she's administrative aide to Larry Groth, who is our fire chief in the township.
Oh, okay.
So
Okay, so
that's
you're still, your
the
family's
government.
still committed
Yeah.
to the community, aren't you?
Oh, yeah. I had the 4 kids in 6 years, so
Oh.
so that was
That's a lot of
kept me
work.
busy.
Yeah.